With free agency just under a day away, the Toronto Raptors have set themselves up this summer by making a few moves over the course of this past week that prepare them for both summer league, training camp, and free agent open season. So we'll break down all of the moves Masai Ujiri has made leading up to this July 1st, or technically I think it's June 30th, sort of start of free agency. So let's dive into the first topic of discussion. The first thing we're taking a look at is the Raptors extending Joe Wieskamp's option. Now, this is a guy that played for the Toronto Raptors for most of last season, was on a couple of 10 days, and then ended up getting the nod as a full-time roster guy on the squad, and was brought in with some excitement, as a lot of Raptors fans looked at this dude as a guy that can knock down shots and could potentially fill a need for the Toronto Raptors in the lack of shooting we've had over the past couple of years. But unfortunately for Joe Wieskamp, didn't really find his footing in the rotation. He had a couple games where he was electrifying, knocking down threes. Then Nurse would bench him for a month and throw him back in, and then he'd come out and he'd airball a couple shots, and then you wouldn't see him ever again. So Joe Wieskamp had a weird stint with the team last season, but it didn't discourage Masai Ujiri to the point where they said, hey, we're not bringing him back, we're just cutting him loose come free agency, as apparently news has come out from Blake Murphy that the Raptors and Joe Wieskamp have agreed to extend his option to July 18th. This gives the Raptors Summer League to track his progress before a deal locks in. Would expect Wieskamp to get a small partial guarantee for him to agree to do this, so this is interesting, as, the Toronto Raptors are going in a much different direction this year with the hiring of Darko, with Nurse being on the way out, so Joe Wieskamp could potentially be a guy that fits in better. I mean, his stats for last season are not anything to be that encouraged by. I mean, 1 point per game, 25% from behind the three-point line as a guy that's supposed to be a three-point shooter, and 21% from the field. It's not good. You look at the box score numbers, but these numbers specifically aren't that fair to Wieskamp because he didn't get a lot of opportunities. I mean, you have one bad game, and then all those numbers are completely skewed. So Wieskamp, sure, he definitely had a couple of moments during the course of last season where he was given an opportunity and definitely fumbled it. One game in particular stands out in my mind when he was shooting some threes, side of the backboard, airball. I think he airballed or side of the backboard a couple threes, to start off that game. But, that is what it is. Nick Nurse has, his reputation is kind of being dragged through the mud a little bit over recent weeks, especially with the Team Canada drama, which we have more info on. I'll just drop it here. Apparently Nurse, he blamed it on the Sixers, or he said that the Sixers said that he didn't want to play in or coach FIBA or Olympic and stuff. That was them that didn't want Nick Nurse to end up coaching the squad, but apparently that's not the case. The Sixers were open to him still coaching Team Canada, so that's more drama I'll probably debate later on with Riker tonight, but I digress. Nurse's name has been dragged through the mud a little bit, and his lack of getting the most out of younger players has been brought to light, especially over the past year. So Joe Wieskamp potentially in a new system, the new Toronto Raptors squad, the ball moving around a little bit more, could potentially thrive in this system, in this scheme. And Masai Ujiri is going to take a look over the course of the summer and say, hey, Wieskamp, we know you didn't do a lot for us last season, but if you can prove something in Summer League, you might get one of those final roster spots. So let me know if you guys like to see Threezy Wheezy, get an opportunity and come back and potentially make a move on this full team next season. So, he's got the intangibles of a guy that in theory fits perfectly with the Toronto Raptors, but obviously has to prove it out there on the court. So that's Joe Wieskamp, but the Raptors end up making a few more signings as they're really filling out their Summer League roster right now, and we have a list of players that are going to be on that team, and generally this time of year, we get the guys that have a legitimate shot at making the actual NBA roster, making the actual NBA team. They get signed early on. In terms of guys that have made the squad, we have Desmond Cambridge, Grady Dick, who was drafted by the Toronto Raptors, so of course he was going to be on this team. DJ Hogg, Marquise Noel, who we made a whole video on the other day, is going to be signing a two-way contract for the Toronto Raptors, and Kevin Obanor. So this team, there's a few guys on this roster. If you want more of a breakdown on Grady Dick and Marquise Noel, check out our previous videos on the channel regarding those guys, but it's a few interesting players being picked up on this Summer League roster, so we'll briefly run through a few of them. First one is Kevin Obanor, the guy that had a lot of Raptors fans excited when he was initially signed to a Summer League roster, as the Raptors filled up their Summer League team and training camp roster as they added Texas Tech forward Kevin Obanor to a Exhibit 10 contract. So who is Kevin Obanor? Right, he's a guy that in college he played full 5 seasons, right? Bounced, had his stats go up and down. I believe he transferred there midway through. He was a guy that had a deep tournament run in that 2021 season, but he's renowned, he's looked at as a 6'8", forward. He can knock down the three-point shot, not at an extremely consistent clip, but 33%, 32%, 46% in 2020, 2021, right? He's definitely proved himself as a guy that can knock down those shots, but apparently he's a dog out there getting rebounds and just a solid utility forward that can also space the floor for your roster. So players like that, given his build, given his frame, could a PJ Tucker comparison be that out of the realm of possibility? Who really knows? But, definitely the Raptors love their 6'9 forwards. And even though we're changing the direction a little bit, we're making different moves, we're adjusting, you're not going to break old habits. And you sure we drafted Grady Dick, who's more of a, well, I guess he's still 6'8", so, fits that sort of realm, but more of a shooter rather than the raw athletic guys. Right, Kevin Obanor can come in, space the floor, play defense, and fit sort of the type of guy Masai Ujiri's been willing to take risks on in the past. So don't be surprised if we see Kevin Obanor, get a chance at making this actual roster come next season. But the next guy we're taking a look at is DJ Hogg, who spent some time in the NBL playing in the Australian League. He's 6'9 as well, 26 years old, so not a super development project, but put up some solid stats over the course of his career. Played for the Aggies, solid stats, in his senior season or Delaware Bluecoats, or in the NCAA, 11-5 for that squad. Then had pretty solid stats as a role player, bouncing around different clubs, but last season in the NBL really showed what he could do. Right, averaging 18 points per game, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and he's picked up for, I believe, Sydney down there in the NBL, and there were a lot of articles pointing to him potentially having a serious impact on one of the best clubs down there in Australia if he doesn't end up getting signed by the Toronto Raptors or an NBA team. So, another one of those dudes, again, 6'9", fits the traditional Toronto Raptors mold, and the Raptors, similar to Jeff Dowtin last season, they like to find value. They forget the younger 19-year-olds that are looking to develop, and maybe this will change for Darko Rajakovic, but basically what the Raptors like to do, bring in older players, whether it be an Ishmael Wainwright, a Jeff Dowtin Jr., right? These types of guys that have had established careers, maybe not in the NBA, but have been developing their game. They're already not finished products, so to speak, but players that can come in and potentially give an impact right away. DJ Hogg could potentially fill that role for the Toronto Raptors if he does end up making the roster, so it's an interesting name there. And then the final guy we're taking a look at is Desmond Cambridge Jr., who is another player I've seen Toronto Raptors fans get a little bit excited about, because you look at his stats, and again, especially a down senior season, he didn't end up getting drafted. A lot of people predicted he'd get drafted this year, but 14 points per game, a couple of assists, 1.7 steals, apparently is solid on the defensive end. And, the percentages from three aren't crazy high. 37%, not this most recent season, but the season prior, isn't horrible. But Desmond Cambridge Jr., from all accounts, from all reports, from everyone that says anything about him, is a bucket getter. He's a guy that can come in, and apparently he's a microwave. I think every article I read about him indicated that he is a microwave directly. He heats up in a hurry. He can just be explosive coming in off the bench, whatever he's doing. Right, there's moments where he can just come in and start going nuclear for your roster. And sometimes at the deep end of your bench, you want guys that can sort of get hot in a hurry, have an impact on limited minutes. But, obviously sometimes these microwave guys, they need a few touches to really get going. And then at least if Nick Nurse certainly is coaching your roster, he's not getting back out there on the court if you miss a few shots starting off. So, I don't know. Few guys that are interesting prospects, players to watch out for come this summer league team. They're brought into the mix before free agency sort of happens. We have a lot of news covering the Toronto Raptors main team that's going to be coming out. I believe we're going live later tonight, talking about the eve of free agency, talking about the things that could potentially go down, giving you guys a preview for the main roster stuff. But the team has made some minor moves. They have shaken things up a little bit here, entering summer league and stuff. And then I'm really excited to see what happens with this roster come tomorrow. Really, we'll see what ends up happening. But folks, you guys have us for making this far. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already, and you're watching all the vids. It means the world to us. But anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.